Okay, welcome everybody to today's webinar. Today we are the honor to have Ling Becker from Ramsey County joining us, going to give us some information about some resources and of workforce in the Ramsey County. The Latino Chamber of Commerce really welcomes all of you. And we're happy that you can join us for today. Today is going to be from 1 o'clock to 2 p.m. At the beginning, we're going to start with the presentation, and then we'll have some time for questions at the end. But feel free to use the chat button at the bottom of your screen at any time. And I'm sure Ling will be able to address any of your questions in the time that she deemed appropriate. So with that, I just want to introduce you to Ling Becker. She is the director of Workforce Solutions at Ramsey County, and she's also the executive director of the Workforce Innovation Board of Ramsey County. So with that, I want to give the microphone to Ling so she can start the presentation and maybe introduce yourself and give us a better idea of what your work is at Ramsey County.
Yeah, thank you so much. So again, my name is Ling Becker. I'm the workforce director here in Ramsey County, and Ramsey County and the city of St. Paul have a unique relationship. We actually have a joint powers agreement when it comes to workforce services. So I'm the workforce director for the city as well. So appreciate all of you for being here. Some of the things I'm going to be sharing are kind of more global topics around workforce challenges and things that hopefully businesses are paying attention to. Some of the resources are Ramsey County specific, but certainly, you know, we work closely with other regional partners, other cities and counties, and also the state. So, you know, be happy to engage in any conversations with you about resources available through other areas as well. So we really appreciate, I want to thank the Latino Chamber, this relationship. We have what's called Inclusive Workforce, our Employer Champions program through some of our area chambers. And this allows the chambers to basically serve as trusted messengers out to the business community to share a little bit more about the public workforce system. It's interesting that in many times of challenges when it comes to finding workers, sometimes businesses actually use the public workforce system less during those challenging times. And we definitely want to change that narrative of being able to see that the public workforce system and some of the principles around having a more inclusive workforce are solutions to closing talent gaps that employers have. So I am going to get ready to share my presentation here. I'm on the wrong slide, unfortunately. You can bear with me. So in terms of like what we do as a department, we do a lot of things. We have a staff of about 80 employees. We also have dozens of community partners that we work with. So we both do deliver some workforce services ourselves, but we also contract with lots of community-based organizations in the community to do that work as well. One of the things I always like to tell people about Ramsey County that's a little bit unique is this circle with the multicolored here, the orange, green, yellow, and blue is our kind of our org chart per se. It represents some of the different service teams that we have in the county. And this has been a change since about 2018 that we moved to this structure. And where I have the arrow is our Department of Workforce Solutions. And it's really strategically placed. Typically, oh, I realized I didn't share my screen fully. I'm sorry. You know, typically in other counties in the state of Minnesota, workforce services are under kind of the Health and Human Services area. And I think it's a real opportunity in Ramsey County that we've really recognized that the people potential of our community and investing in people. Our department actually sits in what's called the Economic Growth and Community Investment Service Team. And that's really, really intentional. It's really recognizing that people are a tremendous asset and that with investment and support, that those folks do help propel our economic prosperity. And so related to that, during the pandemic, the county was working on a new economic development strategy. It's called the Economic Competitiveness and Inclusion Plan. Ramsey County is the most diverse county in the state of Minnesota. We're also very young. About half our population is under the age of 35. And so as we think about the future and not only, wanting to support our residents and really want to increase their upward mobility, there's a real compelling business case that in order to be competitive as a region, and for us to be competitive as a county in terms of business growth and development, we need to embrace workforce inclusion. And so this plan actually is not just workforce, it includes a lot of strategies around small business growth, especially those that are owned by Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and other culturally specific communities, and also housing needs. And so the combination of all that really is going to be what propels our economic competitiveness as a county. Just wanted to call out that, we have a full board of commissioners, but we have one commissioner who is assigned to be the workforce liaison, and that is County Commissioner Rena Moran. Her district kind of covers a lot of the core of St. Paul area, particularly the Midway and Rondo neighborhood. All our commissioners care about workforce services, but she is the primary workforce liaison on behalf of our board. I mentioned the partnership with the chamber, and these are all the organizations in Ramsey County that we are working with. We're working with the St. Paul Chamber, obviously with the Latino Chamber and Fabio and his team, the Midway Chamber, the Port Authority, some economic development organizations, the Black Chamber, the Hmong Chamber, really to enhance our work, recognizing that they have a lot of relationships with the business community, and that by partnering together, we're able to accelerate the resource sharing significantly in events like this. You guys are really attending here because of your relationship with the Latino Chamber, and we continue to be present at events, be shared out on these organizations' websites. We are part of other opportunities where we share information at various things that they're hosting. So it's been a great partnership, and we're really grateful for those organizations for working with us. So one of the things I mentioned that, we do is obviously serve job seekers throughout the county. We offer a variety of programs for job seekers, everything from, kind of open career labs where people can come and get just basic support. And a lot of folks sometimes just need a buff and puff of their resume because maybe they got laid off and haven't looked for a job for a long time. Maybe you need a practice with an interview. But we also support employers, and that looks different in a lot of different settings. We do lots of events, whether they're job fairs. We host employers of the day at key locations around the county. We also do a lot of partnerships with our schools. A couple of pictures here. The one in the middle, we're actually hosting some small table conversations about how to be a fair chance, fair opportunity employer, and I'll talk a little more about that work in a little bit. The picture at the bottom right, we actually partner with the St. Paul Chamber and do a big Career Connect Day for 10th graders that are in the county. And so, all those things, the whole continuum of work, whether someone's been dislocated from a job at no fault of their own, whether they're part of our public assistance programs and have mandated needs to be connected to employment counselor, to the employer things that folks need. So, everything that folks want to hear about generally is really around the talent shortage. If you guys are HR professionals or represent businesses, this is a challenging time for many in order to get workers and talent that you need. The interesting thing about it is that, in 2019, I was talking about a lot of the same conversations with employers. And then we had COVID happen, and we're kind of in the same place, which I find quite interesting because there's actually some systemic things about our hiring practices, our employer culture, systemic inequities that really, COVID obviously was a huge disruptor in a lot of things in business, in life, in health outcomes for folks. But really some of the challenges when it comes to being inclusive employers and workplaces, those things really haven't changed a lot since 2019 in some areas. And so some of the historic barriers still exist. We definitely have a little bit of an insufficient labor pool when it comes to some mismatch of skills and maybe where even people live in our state and some of those needs. We definitely have those persistent employment disparities, and we'll talk about some of the work that we do around that, and really some of the structures that are make it really hard for people of color sometimes to obtain opportunities. We certainly have seen a labor force participation fluctuate throughout the pandemic. I just saw some new numbers that we actually are at have kind of regained a lot of that, and yet we still are at a very, very low unemployment. And so I don't believe that it's just purely like more people working means that we're going to have, more people filling some jobs. It's just that there's actually some people that either are not even in the labor force anymore for a variety of reasons, or employers are choosing sometimes not to hire folks because, maybe their hiring requirements are too high, or, there's some systemic inequities. So I know a lot of employers are working on things of DEI. I also do see that out in our community, a lot of those initiatives really peaked during the pandemic and after the civil unrest and, in our community. And a little bit of that has waned. And if anything, kind of word on the street is, and some statistics prove that some of those DEI initiatives and people who've been hired are, kind of the first to go if there's some tightening of budgets now. And so sometimes we're always little, skeptical of like how change is really happening at employers and whether we're seeing long-term systemic change when it comes to having more people have access to opportunity. So, and this slide kind of bears it out a little bit. This is a little bit of an older slide. It's actually very challenging to get. That's not dated because there's a big lag, but this really isn't much different than what we believe is happening out in the community today. What this really just demonstrates is that the white unemployment is significantly lower, and all races, particularly Black and American Indian, or those with mixed race, which tend to a lot of times to be our American Indian community as well, are really struggling with unemployment at a higher rate than other communities. So I want to talk about a few critical issues, and then hopefully one of these or some of these might be of interest. And if anyone wants to have more of a dialogue, we can do that. One really critical thing that we've been spending a lot of time on is changing workplaces and the digital divide. I'm sure many of you work in environments where there's been an increase of mobile or hybrid work. And we've been tracking that in Ramsey County pretty closely throughout the pandemic. And we definitely have seen more jobs, be posted that are remote, and certainly IT roles that are remote or hybrid remote, and less jobs that are being posted fully on site. So this is a little bit of a difficult slide to totally see all the trends because we're only capturing a year over year, and lots have happened kind of even the year previous to 2022. And so if you could kind of see the stats, I think you can see it more in the graph than in the numbers, but there's been definitely a significant uptake of mobile jobs and hybrid jobs. And why this is important is for a variety of reasons. I mean, one, we need to really care about digital equity because access to jobs requires new skill sets that people may or may not have. Secondly, for people who are interested in economic development and understanding their communities, whether you're, part of, whatever business you're in, if you're interested in ensuring that, businesses are thriving in your community, whether you're in banking or in, some sort of like retail trade or whatever, I'm in downtown right now, and certainly there's an economic development impact when businesses are kind of shrinking their in-person footprint. A lot of times businesses aren't able to shift those as quickly, they can't get out of leases immediately, but certainly we're seeing a big shift in probably the way businesses are looking at their spaces. And that ultimately has significant impacts to the whole economic development of a community, as you see in what's happening in a lot of downtowns in particular. And digital equity is something that really is foundational to an equitable future. Access to broadband is something that, while it doesn't seem like it's an issue in the urban core where we're represented, the how people get access is a big issue, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But really, we find that the vast majority of our residents do have connectivity, but many times it is through a phone, and many times it's through a limited data plan. So that really does limit people's ability to earn and learn and do things that they, we find pretty kind of second nature if you have unlimited internet and access to better devices. Throughout the pandemic, we found this to be what has been called the super determinant of health. More people died who actually did not have access to digital skills and tools. Some of you might remember those frantic days when people were trying to sign up for immunizations online, and that wasn't always available to everybody. And we certainly saw the disruption when it comes to education and young people and even older students needing to switch to online learning. And and workforce is obviously shifting very dramatically based on what I just said around the changing workplaces and what skills and connectivity that people need. You think about how many hybrid jobs have really pivoted. I'm not aware of many employers that actually help pay for people's internet as part of like a benefits package. So we're kind of assuming that workers have access to that and are able to bear some of that burden themselves as well. So, and when you apply a racial equity lens, we definitely see that less of our diverse communities have some of the digital skills that are needed for the future of work. And so we'll share these slides, or Fabio can share these slides with you after, but we certainly see that immigrants and people of color significantly are struggling more with the digital skills needed for work than their white counterparts. And so we did a fairly extensive research community engagement project in partnership with the city of St. Paul this last year, and really tried to understand the experience from residents themselves. And sure enough, we were able to overlay a map of where, the county is actually fully connected. But if you layer in the challenges around devices, digital literacy skills, and unlimited internet that people do not have in our county, generally in the urban core, it overlaps really tightly with the previous redlining that happened in communities back in the 50s. And so we're actually seeing a significant trend of basically those same racial disparities overlaid. It just looks different today in terms of access to things that open up the economy to you or open up wealth to you. So, so some of our conclusions really around the study was that, really eye-opening was that, this is actually a critical issue that's almost foundational to solving a lot of the other things that we are trying to solve in our communities. And that we really do need to listen to the residents themselves on what those challenges are. The limited data plans and the usage of phones is not actually sufficient for living, a fully digital life. And then also that these things that people need, devices, broadband connection, and also skills, are a cyclical need. It's not a one and done. So imagine how many devices have you replaced since 2020 in your house or for yourself? And then how often do people get kicked off some of their limited data plans and have to resubscribe and maybe even have to go through a credit check? And then lastly, when the skills themselves are constantly changing and you're having to learn new software or new ways to connect. And so the combination of all that just shows that we aren't able to solve this problem just by giving people a set of skills or resources, but this is an ongoing need as we have a shifting environment. So I want to talk a little bit about IT, because this is kind of related as well to the digital equity. And this was the one industry I sort of picked out because it's just so dramatic in terms of some of the challenges. But IT is actually one of our highest growth areas and has the lowest unemployment, actually has very, family sustaining wages. It ranks very high. The challenge with IT is that 91% of the IT job postings in Ramsey County require a bachelor's degree, and 89% in the MSP metro area. When we look nationally and do kind of a cross-cutting of what's happening around the country, only about 60% of companies are requiring a bachelor's degree for software developer roles. And so we're seeing this disconnect. Minnesota is a wonderful place to live. It is very challenging on one front of the high value of education kind of has its good and bad, you know, like we benefit from a very robust education system, but then we also have a very high bar of our value that we place on some of that education, and some of those, you know, tend to be those 4-year degrees over maybe some short-term trainings and on-the-job trainings that people bring. So and we only have, you know, for about 5% of our Black and African American residents are currently working in IT, when, you know, compared across proportionally in our population, they represent almost 11% of the population. So there's a lot of work that we can do in IT. Some of the numbers here are just dramatic, and so it's a good way to sort of provide some context of some of the work we have to do around specific industries. And I think we could find some areas of disconnect like this in almost every industry. So one of the things that we've been really focused on is sort of trying to figure out like a different pathway for careers as we help people kind of shift from like kind of entry level jobs into what we call target occupations that are more in high demand and high wage and high growth. And so we do this by bridging what's called a gateway occupation. And so what you see here, and we actually have these dioramas for multiple of industries. If someone's interested, I have my contact information at the end of this presentation, and I'd be happy to connect with you. But as you can see on the gray, the light gray, we were talking about some of these aligned occupations around that really are kind of going away with like kind of like future of work. And certainly, and so some of the examples we put in here are customer service reps, library technicians, hosts and hostesses, some of these, but we can kind of figure out what are those in-demand skills that actually a lot of those folks still display. And we can match them up with some gateway occupations that are actually high skill and high demand, but don't require a 4-year degree, but, you know, might be opportunities for people to pivot into. And then from those careers or gateway occupations, potentially with a little more education and support, once they're with an employer, they might be able to get into some of those target occupations. So by kind of thinking about it in some of these different levels, it enables job seekers to maybe be more digestible of like trying to pivot, you know, from a customer service rep to a computer analyst, for example. There's a couple more stops along the way. The other thing that the county has really focused on is kind of an earn and learn model. We just put out $10 million of new training in partnership with the city of St. Paul, recognizing that people have a lot of financial obligations. We have a whole generation of young people between probably 18 and 30 that have kind of picked other pathways that, or just, I would call jobs, literally like the Uber type jobs, the gig jobs. And they're kind of stuck there because they're paying bills and supporting families and needing and unable to sort of sacrifice that for training. And so we are trying to invest in some models of gateway occupations that allow some of those folks to move on. I like to tell the story. I was recently in DC where my Uber driver was, I had a conversation with him. You know, he has a couple of young kids. I was saying, you know, this is a pretty expensive Uber. How much do you get out of it? And he told me, and it was, you know, a travesty, really, what he was getting out of the drive. And I said, well, what do you want to be doing? And he said, well, I would want to be, and he pointed to the airport, you know, I want to be an airline mechanic. And I, you know, in that conversation with him, he was like, but there's no way I could stop doing what I'm doing to be that. And so investing in kind of these earn and learn models maybe doesn't mean someone like him is just kind of stops driving Uber, but it can be like he can drive Uber, maybe go to school and get some stipends and subsidy while he's sort of skilling himself. You know, a lot of folks have ended up in these gig jobs and now are kind of a lost workforce pool for us because it's really difficult to sort of invest in themselves and break away from kind of the paycheck that they need in order to, you know, take care of them and their family. So rather than going into this, I'm going to keep moving. Talk a little bit about driver's licenses. This has been a big passion of the county. Some of you might be surprised that prior to the pandemic, only 15% of teens get their driver's license in schools. Back in the 70s, 95% of them got them in high school. And we really do have to do a mental shift now based on what we know about labor market and the needs of employers, that driver's licenses is not really about having some freedom to go be with your friends or whatever. Most people can do that using their phones these days. But instead, it's really a critical work credential. And for a lot of young people, particularly young, diverse young people, it is very difficult to get a driver's license. And so we've been tracking this. We invested with the city of St. Paul in a driver's license academy for employers. If you actually have some jobs where the driver's license is kind of the last barrier somebody needs, we'd love for you to refer them over to us. We'd love to help some more young people between ages 18 and 24 get their driver's license. We do some tutoring, we help them get their permit, we pay for behind the wheel, we provide a vehicle for their road test, some of the things that a lot of young people just do not have access to. You might hear about people talk about intergenerational wealth a lot these days in different circles, and working on this project really helped me realize that even driving and cars are an intergenerational wealth like barrier for a lot of diverse young people in our community, new immigrants and folks, because you think about how many people, use their parents' car for various things, whether they were having a high school job, college job, maybe their first car was actually given to them by their parents. Maybe they bought a used car from their grandparents. I mean, sometimes we don't think about some of those things end up changing the trajectory of what access and opportunity can be for people because they had access to a vehicle and a car. And so it just really opened my eyes about the value and the importance of this. And we certainly see it in our job postings. This again fluctuates quite a bit, but you can see that even in jobs like in social service and human services, obviously in any delivery and driving jobs, but we're seeing like postings where many job postings require a driver's license. So, and then I just want to talk a few moments about building a more inclusive workplace. This comes from the Center for Economic Inclusion. This is a statewide statistic, but really our Black, Indigenous, culturally specific communities really are saying that they feel employment discrimination, and that can look a lot of different ways. But as a part of that, as employers, a lot of work has to be done in terms of the intentionality to sort of bring these to really close the gap here. And one thing I like to call out is it's not only is it our diverse communities, but sometimes specific populations that are disproportionately impacted by some of our systems. And when it comes to people who've been incarcerated, we see significantly high unemployment rate than even just, who they are as Blacks or themselves if they're not involved in the justice system. So you can see like for Black men, the unemployment rate was like at 7.7%, but it's 35% if you have some criminal record or been incarcerated. So, and there's a lot of loss that comes with that into our community, loss of wages, loss of earning potential. And for a lot of employers, as you struggle to find talent, there are people who are talented in these categories that we somehow have to be able to ensure that we can, help them not be judged by the worst moment that, of their life, that one thing or that happened. So it gives us a lot of hope that we continue to work on this as a community. We actually have a new community coalition of some organizations that we're working with. And so if this is something you're interested in, I'd love to talk to you further about it as well. And then in terms of resources, just real quick, we are starting and Fabio will be able to share this out with the Chamber Network here very soon. We are starting a new program called Successful Employer Training. These are going to be offered the third Fridays of every month at 11 o'clock virtually, and they're completely led by young people through World Youth Connect, and it's for supervisors who want to get some additional skills in working with diverse young employees. And so these are free. We'd love for businesses to check it out and then maybe add it onto your onboarding plan for supervisors or development plans to be able to hear some of the scenarios and the challenges that young people are saying, this is what we feel when this scenario happens, or here's some tips on how young people could be best onboarded who look different than the traditional workplace. And so hopefully that's of interest to all of you and you'll be able to hear more about it. We also, in September, will be launching a new inclusive employer toolkit. It's very comprehensive. It actually covers all the phases of an employee life cycle and has a multitude of resources for employers and for HR professionals. As I mentioned, we have a lot of initiatives around fair opportunities. It's called Let's Get to Work. Happy to share more about that as well. I have some links here. Every year we actually do a program. Currently our partner is the Center for Economic Inclusion called the Inclusive Employer Cohort. We take about 20 businesses and employers through an intensive 9-month cohort experience where the center helps support you through those challenges of the employee life cycle. And it's free for employers. We do up to 20 businesses a year, and they all go through at the same time. They learn a lot from each other. It's a safe place to talk about some challenges. Everybody kind of identifies by the end of their midway through the session something that they kind of want to tangibly work on and create like an internal project to take away. And they get supported by the center throughout. And again, free of charge for employers. And then we also have a lot of resources on our Ramsey County Means Business page. And if there's time, I'd be happy to share that with you. But we have a job board there. We have a training dashboard that has a lot of the CBO connections that we have. A couple times a year, we host sort of a event for HR professionals to meet the community-based organizations in our community and see what training programs they have. And you can always connect with us at employerservices@ramseycounty.us. So Fabio, I know that was a lot, but I think my last slide is just my contact information. So hopefully that's what you were hoping to get. So
thank you so much, Ling. I know there's Ramsey County is doing a lot to help employers to be more diverse and have more inclusivity in their populations of workers. So and this is it's a good effort, and I think all these tools are there and they're available for anybody in the Ramsey County that are just looking for get a database or get the job boards and all of that. So thank you so much for all the information. I think there was a question in there, and it was related to the driver's license program. Yeah. Can you go back and touch on that, Ling?
Yeah, I'm happy to touch on that. So I just put the website on. You have to be 18 to 24. You have to be a Ramsey County resident, and you have to either be in a job training program or be pursuing a career that needs, that is more likely that you need to drive in order to pursue that industry. And so we're pretty flexible. We just sort of had to create a funnel to, create some eligibility, but certainly I'm open to working with employers. Like if you're working with someone who is a Ramsey County resident and you need them to drive to do a job, and the only reason you're not able to make that hire is because of that, we would certainly welcome enrolling them and helping them get their license, as you continue to get them onto a hiring path. So.
All right, perfect. If anybody else have any questions, please just do the chat and type up your question there. I'm recording this webinar, so I will be posting it into our website, and we'll be sharing it. If you know anybody that will benefit from the information that Ling shared today, please let me know, and we'll send them the link for the video that we are recording today.
Yeah, and Fabio, if you don't mind, I'll quickly just share the website since we have a couple minutes, but this is the Ramsey County Means Business website, and this was really created as our economic development portal. So one part of it is really around our land and opportunities for businesses to grow, but obviously the people part of it is very significant. And so if you click on workforce, we've got, all our resources here. You can go to our job board, which a lot of the counselors and folks who are working with our populations are, that we're connected to and our county systems use. We have information about our cohort when that opens up every year. We have some labor market information. And the big thing is, I'll show you a couple of spots. One is this workforce training dashboard. Why employers, I think, need to see this is that there's actually a lot of free training in the community that's offered to residents. And there's a great partnership opportunity for you to sort of know about these programs, right? Because if you're actually trying to hire auto technicians, you should be in touch with Goodwill, because every so many months they're graduating a whole bunch, right? And so I think just this is kind of the event we do a couple times a year, where we bring a lot of these training providers all in a room. But I think you can do some of this searching yourself as well. Another thing that we have is the workforce partners, just to even see who is kind of in this space, right? That does workforce development. If we want to build partnerships, we've got, this whole database of resources. And, if you email our team, we'll even sit down and kind of build a little bit of a consult plan with you. If you tell us kind of, these are like, we want to work on an apprenticeship, we really are struggling to do this, like we might be able to give you some strategies as to things that you might be able to do and make some more concrete introductions for you. Not saying that you can't find people yourselves, but sometimes it can be difficult. I don't know how many of you called like a community college and you get like hit 1 if you want to pay your tuition, hit 2 if you're on directions. I mean, you actually just need to get to the dean of the auto shop, and we can probably fast track that for you. So and then we have some information. For example, all our Ramsey County schools have career pathway programs. This will get you a little faster, like if you're trying to get to Mounds View, we can do that introduction, but there's a whole bunch of information about what pathways they have at Moundsville schools, right? So our goal is not to do all the work. We can't. We need a community of partners, but we want to be that conduit to help you. And actually, if you commit to sort of wanting to move on an inclusive plan, we're very much committed to meeting with you on a fairly regular basis to continue to, build that plan out and access all the resources in the community. So we can just throw that link in the chat too of the workforce page there. So if you want to explore that yourself, but all right.
All right. That's really nice. Thank you for sharing the website link. And I need for the audience, just pick that link and start exploring the website and get all those resources, all that information too. So I don't see any more questions in the chat room, Ling. So this is going to be it for us.
Yeah.
I wanted to thank you, Ling, for participating with us. Thank you for letting us be part of this partnership with Ramsey County. And we hope that in the future we still do a lot of good programs that would benefit the Latino community on one side, and to any of the minority communities here in Minnesota.
Yeah.
With that, thank you for the audience that participated today. I just wanted to remind everybody also, I'm going to take the opportunity to remind you that we have this networking event coming this coming Thursday, and that you are all invited to be with us. This is going to be a good amount of chamber members, including a lot of the Latino business owners and Latino professionals, and even some corporate executives are going to be there to meet new people. And I know that some of us are old friends already, so it's a good opportunity to go meet again with old friends and meet new friends too. So this Thursday at 5:30 at the North House here in downtown Minneapolis. With that, thank you so much, Ling. And thank you for participating with us. And
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day. Yeah, I'm gonna send it. I'm gonna correct Ken or